Dear friends, we were dealing with Rule 10 of Order 38. This is episode number 58. We will complete Rule 10 and the other rules in Order 38, and thereafter we will go to Order 39. Now, Rule 10 of Order 38. Attachment before judgment shall not affect the rights existing prior to the attachment. That was the point which we were discussing. The principle is that the attachment takes effect only in regard to the right which the judgmentator has in the property at the time of attachment. Any interest or right in the property prior to the attachment is not affected by the later attachment. This is the principle. Now, I will refer to two or three sentences in the commentary. See, the effect of attachment before judgment. It does not operate against the decree holder who attaches the same property. So, another decree holder, here it is a suit, an attachment before judgment. Another decree holder proceeds against the property. That is not affected. That is not being prevented by the order of attachment before judgment in the later suit. And also that Section 64 and this rule must be read together. These are all very old decisions. A decree holder is entitled to attach and sell the property attached before judgment by the plaintiff, and latter has no priority. That is, I will give an example. A has filed a suit against B. A has got an order of attachment of the mold property belonging to B. C has obtained a decree against B. He executes the decree and he gets an order of attachment of this property and he proceeds with the execution. That proceeding cannot be prevented by the order of attachment. And there is no, by attachment as such, does not create any interest in a mold property. A decree holder is entitled to attach and sell the property attached before judgment by the plaintiff, and the latter has no priority. No priority over attachment. Two or three persons, say for example in 2019 a decree is passed in favor of a person. 2020 another decree is passed. 2018 another decree is passed against the same judgment. All these decree holders proceed against the judgmentator and attaches his property. Though 2018 judgment holder has attached the property first, that does not give him any priority. Even 2020 decree holder may attach the property, proceed with the sale and sell the property through court auction, unless by that time the other two persons also approaches the executing court and applies for rateable distribution under section 73. Otherwise, there is no other priority. Anybody can attach in execution of the decree, proceed with the sale, and there is no priority in the matter. I have attached the property first and therefore I must get the property. There is no such thing. And therefore, pre-existing rights are not affected. Then 11 and 11a. I will refer to See, please note this. AER 2004 Kerala 245. AER 2004 Kerala 245. That is 2003 2 KLT 866. Once an attachment at the pre-decretal stage is made, we have seen under Rule 11 that no reattachment is required. It will inure to the benefit of the execution proceedings as well. An attachment before judgment is made, that will not cease there unless that suit is dismissed for default or any other thing, as is referred to in Rule 11A2. So, Rule 11 says where property is under attachment by virtue of the provisions of this order and a decree subsequently passed, it shall not be necessary again to attach. It can be straight away proceeded with. In that case, you read this judgment 2003 2 KLT 866. When an execution petition for executing a decree by proceeding against the property attached at the pre-decretal stage is dismissed, execution petition is dismissed. Attachment before judgment was there, decree was passed subsequently, an execution petition was filed, and that execution petition was dismissed for default. Even if the execution court does not give an indication as to the continuance of the attachment would not cease. Attachment under Order 38 ceases to exist only by the full satisfaction of the decree or when the attachment is otherwise lifted, with only exception under Rule 11A. So that Rule 11A stage is over once the decree is passed. That suit was decreed, therefore there is no question of dismissing that suit for default. Otherwise, that will inure to the benefit of the execution proceedings as well. That will continue. It need not be reattached. It can be straight away proceeded with. And in execution of that decree, any execution petition is filed. That execution petition was dismissed for default. Nothing happens. The attachment will not come to an end, because that is an attachment before judgment made before judgment. That will continue to be available throughout the execution proceedings. One execution petition is dismissed, another execution petition is filed, there is no harm, unless there are some points decided there. Otherwise, another mode, or it is dismissed for default within the period of limitation, another execution petition can be filed. So the attachment before judgment, which by virtue of this fiction under 11A, which continues even after the decree is over and even it is available in execution, that does not come to an end by the dismissal of an execution petition, and it will be available throughout until the decree is satisfied or until the period of limitation is over. Till then it will be available. So that once an attachment before judgment is obtained, there is no worry. Of course, that property can be proceeded against by other decree holders, no harm. There is no precedence, no preference, etc. These are the provisions. Then Rule 12, agricultural produce not attachable before judgment. Nothing in this order shall be deemed to authorize the plaintiff to apply for the attachment of any agricultural produce in the possession of an agriculturist, or to empower the court to order the attachment or protection of such produce. So agricultural produce can be attached in execution of a decree with certain limitations. There are certain things. But attachment before judgment, that cannot be had, which we have referred to while dealing with the question of attachment of crops and all those things. Then 13, small cause court not to attach immovable property. Court dealing with the small cause cases has no jurisdiction to attach immovable property. So by that we have come to an end of Order 38. Please go through the commentaries, the various decisions, and I have given only a very few judgments, very few. There are some decisions which are overruled. I am not giving the citation of all those things. For example, for your information, I will see 1991 1 KLT 393. That was overruled in 2008, 1 KLT 136. I am not giving the facts of those cases and trouble you in this episode. We will straight away go to Order 39. Order 39. Order 39 is a matter which is very important, very important. In most of the days, there will be some injunction petition. Along with the suit, there will be an injunction petition, and there will be arguments and counter arguments. And the parties who file the suit and does not get an order of injunction, he is not satisfied. The client is also not satisfied. An interim injunction is to be obtained. Then whatever happens, nobody is worried. But without an injunction, some courts are very reluctant to give interim injunction. Even in cases where it is necessary, some courts will not grant. That is not correct. The power is there for the court. And suppose I file a suit for injunction against you. My allegation is that my property, you are going to trespass upon my property and cut down valuable trees. I apply for an interim injunction restraining you not to cut the trees. What is there if an interim order is granted? Nothing will happen. Otherwise, what will happen? If no order is granted, tomorrow you may cut down the trees. Once the trees are cut or the buildings are pulled down, how can it be rectified? Building can be reconstructed. What about the trees? But some courts are reluctant even to grant such orders. That apart, let us see the provisions. This is referable to Section 94C. The power arises from 94C. Let us see Section 94C. Supplemental proceedings. In order to prevent the ends of justice from being defeated, we have referred to earlier. In order to prevent the ends of justice from being defeated, the court may, if it is so prescribed. Prescribed means prescribed by rules. It is prescribed by rules in Order 39. C. Grant a temporary injunction, and in case of disobedience, commit the person guilty thereof to the civil prison and order that his property be attached and sold. This is the power. The manner in which it is to be done is prescribed in Order 39. I said that the Order 39 is very important, practical side of it. Everyday matter. Heated arguments will be there in court. Even for final hearing and disposal, this much pressure will not be there on the advocates and by the advocates. On the advocates by the clients and by the advocates over the court. So they are very much interested in fresh cases. Clients are also very alert. They want to fight and fight and fight. And after some time, the vigor will come down. After a first appeal and second appeal are also over, there will be no vigor. And that is the delay cost. So here interim orders are very important for the litigants, for the lawyers, for the court and all concerned. For the effective administration of justice and for the clients to have faith in the courts, it is necessary that wherever required and wherever required alone, the court shall grant interim orders. There are some officers who I have heard even them saying, I will not grant an ad interim order. No, not at all. What is the greatness in that? You are given the power. The litigants approach you, pointing out their grievance. Look into their grievance. And if they are entitled to a relief, interim relief, and the law provides for it, there is no prohibition. The court should not be reluctant to grant interim orders wherever it is absolutely necessary. The court should not shirk its responsibility. And the lawyers are entitled to put forward their grievance, their client's grievance, vehemently. No doubt about it. And what are all the cases in which temporary injunction can be granted? What is the difference between temporary injunction and ad interim injunction? A suit is filed. Whatever may be the relief. Depends on the relief. An application for temporary injunction is filed. The respondent in that application has to be heard. Court has to pass a final order in that IA, interlocutory application. The court grants it. That is the order of temporary injunction. It is appealable under Order 43. Ad interim order of injunction is, I file a suit for injunction or any other relief today. I apply for a temporary injunction. And I pray for an ad interim order of injunction without notice to the other side. Immediate, urgent relief. It may be required sometimes, which I gave the instance, cutting of trees, destroying buildings and all those things. Court may grant. Court grants that. Then issues notice. There are certain conditions to be satisfied by the plaintiff, certain requirements, which we will come to. And this order is called ad interim order of injunction or interim injunction. That is not appealable. An order of injunction is appealable. Order 43. An order under Rule 1, Rule 2, Rule 2A and Rule 4 or Rule 10 of Order 39. I am not saying that ad interim orders cannot be appealed against at all, but what is intended is that the final orders will be. Ad interim order you can apply before the same court. I am not saying that under no circumstances the court can. Court can take suo motu revision, no problem. There are instances where the High Court has done it, even without anybody applying. On coming to know of it, court has taken suo motu revision under 115 and quashed the order. And there are instances where even an ad interim order of injunction, depending on the peculiarity of the circumstances, an Article 227 petition was filed and entertained and it was allowed. So that power does not lack. Depending upon the facts and circumstances of the case, there must be power. That power is there to do justice. That there is no question of lack of any power in the courts. Power is there. Now, let us see. We need not trouble ourselves to the maintainability of the original petition under Article 227, suo motu revision and all those things. There are powers. I just indicated that. Rule 1. Cases in which temporary injunction may be granted. Where in any suit it is proved by affidavit or otherwise that any property in dispute in a suit is in danger of being wasted, damaged or alienated by any party to the suit. or wrongfully sold in execution of a decree, or that the defendant threatens or intends to remove or dispose of his property with a view to defrauding his creditors. Or that the defendant threatens to dispossess the plaintiff or otherwise cause injury to the plaintiff in relation to any property in dispute in the suit. This clause C was added in 1976. The court may, by order, grant a temporary injunction to restrain such act or make such other order for the purpose of staying and preventing wasting, damaging, alienation, sale, removal or disposition of property or dispossession of the plaintiff or otherwise causing injury to the plaintiff in relation to any property in dispute in the suit, as the court thinks fit, until disposal of the suit or until further orders. So this is one rule. The other is rule 2. What is this rule? There are 3 situations. We have to carefully examine each word. Clause A, that any property in dispute in a suit is in danger of being wasted, damaged or alienated. So, clause A aims at waste, damage or alienation. By whom? By any party to the suit or wrongfully sold in execution of a decree. Or wrongfully sold in execution of a decree. What is wrongfully sold in execution of a decree? I will come to that. I will read a passage from Mullahs. I will come to that. Who can, against whom injunction can be granted under clause A? 3 things under clause A. That the property in dispute is in danger of being wasted, damaged or alienated. Wasted, damaged or alienated. By whom? By any party to the suit. So it can be the plaintiff or it can be the defendant. The defendant can obtain an order of temporary injunction against the plaintiff not to cut trees, not to dispose of the property, not to alienate, not to pull down buildings, etc. etc. So that is applicable that an order can be passed in favor of the plaintiff as well as the defendant. Depending upon the facts and circumstances of each case, there is no bar. What about clause B? That the defendant threatens or intends to remove or dispose of his property with a view to defrauding his creditors. There the temporary injunction can be granted only against the defendant, not the plaintiff. What is the purpose there? Dispose of his property for what? With a view to defrauding his creditors. That the defendant has no business to get such an order. There is no occasion also. So here the temporary injunction order under clause B can be granted only against the defendant, not against the plaintiff. Whereas an order of temporary injunction in the 3 situations mentioned in clause A can be granted against any party, including the plaintiff. Then C, that the defendant threatens to dispossess the plaintiff or otherwise cause injury to the plaintiff in relation to any property in dispute in the suit. That is added there. There is a threat to dispossess the plaintiff, an injunction restraining him from dispossessing the plaintiff. Suit is for a permanent prohibitory injunction, or it may be a suit based on title, declaration and injunction. where a temporary injunction is possible, restraining the defendant from dispossessing the plaintiff, or otherwise causing injury to the plaintiff in such and such manner as may be detailed in the application. Any possible danger is contemplated there. These are the three situations, three clauses, and in each clause there are situations. The court may grant a temporary injunction to restrain the above acts. We need not read it again, what the court will do, because restrain each and everything is mentioned here. Staying and preventing wasting, damaging, alienation, sale, removal or disposition of property, or dispossession of plaintiff, or otherwise causing injury. All these acts which constitute the subject matter of an application under Rule 1 are dealt with in the order portion in Rule 1 itself. The court may pass an order doing this. Therefore, it is very effective, comprehensive. Then Rule 2. In what situation it can be done? Injunction to restrain repetition or continuance of breach. In any suit for restraining the defendant from committing a breach of contract or other injury of any kind, whether compensation is claimed in the suit or not, the plaintiff may, at any time after the commencement of the suit, and either before or after the judgment, apply to the court for a temporary injunction to restrain the defendant from committing the breach of contract or injury complained of, or breach of contract or injury of a like kind and arising out of the same contract or relating to the same property or right. We will come back to Rule 2. The court may, by order, grant such injunction on such terms as to the duration of the injunction, keeping an account, giving security, or otherwise as the court thinks fit. Is Rule 2. Now in this, while dealing with Order 39, I will cite some of the decisions for your convenience at the end of it, not rule by rule, so that will be convenient for you. After completing Order 39, then I will refer to each rule, give decisions, so that it will be easier for you. Now, see the wording in Rule 2. The plaintiff may apply to the court. So, whose application? Plaintiff, not the defendant. To restrain the defendant. So, who is the respondent in the application? The defendant. So, an injunction of the nature under Rule 2 can be granted only in favor of the plaintiff and against the defendant. Whereas under Rule 1A, an injunction can be applied for by the plaintiff or the defendant, and such injunction can be granted against the defendant or the plaintiff as the case may be. Whereas under two clauses B and C, as well as Rule 2, the injunction can be granted only as against the defendant. This is the distinction which has to be borne in mind. Now, what is this meaning? Or wrongfully sold in execution of a decree. Rule 1 Clause A, that any property in dispute in a suit is in danger of being wasted, damaged or alienated by any party. That we can understand, there is no explanation required. Or wrongfully sold in execution. What is that? A files a suit against B. He applies for a temporary injunction under Rule 1 Clause A. What is the relief asked? The property which is in dispute is being proceeded against wrongfully in execution of a decree which C has obtained against B. A is the plaintiff, B is the defendant. C has obtained a decree against B. That is a collusive decree, fraudulent one. And only to defeat my rights, such a decree was obtained and it is being executed. I can ask for an injunction. Save my property. So that also is possible. But it is very difficult to get an order of injunction. That is another thing. Because otherwise what will happen? Every decree, when it is being executed, there will be some other suit and an injunction will be obtained. And the Supreme Court and various high courts have held that it is in rare cases that such an injunction restraining a legal proceedings in execution can be granted, or proceeding with another suit can be granted. Otherwise, the parties will resort to, suppose I suffer a decree, you got a decree against me. When you are going to execute the decree, I file another suit and say that, or some other party files a suit. So that will only to result in protracting the matter. So the court will be reluctant to grant such orders of injunction unless it is shown that there are. I will read one passage from Mullah that is under rule property in danger of being wrongfully sold in execution of a decree. Certain property attached in execution of a decree obtained by A against B is notified for sale at the instance of A. A has obtained a decree against B, that property is going to be sold. C, alleging that the property belongs to him and not to B, sues A and B for declaration of his title to the property and applies for an injunction under this rule to restrain A from bringing the property to sale until the suit is disposed of. Has the court power to grant the injunction under this rule? Yes, for the case is one in which the property in dispute is in the suit is in danger of being wrongfully sold in execution of a decree. It is immaterial that the court in which the suit is brought is different from the court executing the decree or inferior in rank, etc., etc. That is a decision, please see. Decision 1886, 12 Calcutta. Which year? Very old. There are other decisions also. 1896, 1910, 42 Calcutta Weekly Notes of 1938. All these points. So the court has power. See, A obtained a decree against B, and that property belonging to B is brought to sale. C says that he is the owner of the property and this decree is a collusive one. Where shall he go? He has got a right to protect his property. He can file a suit for declaration of title and injunction. He can ask for stay of the proceedings. Court has power to grant it. Depends on the facts of each case. So the power which is vested under Order 39 Rule 1 is very wide. Court can grant such orders. There is no harm, provided it is meritorious. The court has the discretionary power to grant injunction. We will see in the next episode about the parameters to be satisfied. Apart from these statutory provisions, there are certain principles which have been laid down over the years with respect to the grant of injunction. That is prima facie case, balance of convenience, irreparable injury and all those things. We will deal with all those things later and also the rest of the rules in the next episode and in the coming episode. Thank you.